First of all, I do want to just give a recording warning. We do have some people who are joining us via Zoom, and the Zoom is being recorded. The majority of the camera is just focused on the speaker. However, they are able to hear the questions from the audience. So just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. The recording will be posted sometime within, I'd say, give us 5 business days or so to our YouTube channel, which is Title Not Just Books. So we will be having that there. Welcome to the Traverse Area District Library. I'm Melissa McKenna, and I am the Adult Services Department head. So I'm in charge of pretty much the second floor, most of the second floor here. We're so happy that you're here this evening with us for our 5th and next to last of our Community Conversations Addiction and Recovery series. These conversations have been so very important to make sure that we can share with everyone the resources that are available here in our local community for people that are needing of help and assistance. So tonight's presenters are going to be sharing information on assistance available to those experiencing mental health issues. Recovery is not ever going to be sustainable if the underlying mental health issues instigating that substance use disorder are not addressed, right? So those two things go hand in hand. So it's a very important topic for the recovery community. We hope that you're going to be able to join us next month on the 3rd Tuesday in September, which is the 20th. September is National Recovery Month, and we are going to have a huge celebration out on the library's front lawn. We are going to have the KLT Thunder Truck. They will be joining us, as well as open mic recovery stories. So we invite everyone in the recovery community to join us and share your stories of hope. We're going to have free treats from the Moomer's Ice Cream Truck, courtesy of Northwest Michigan Works and their opioid recovery. And let me see, I got that. I knew I was going to get that one. There are so many words in that grant that they got. So it is the Opioid Recovery and Remediation Fund. That's the word I was looking for, remediation. So please, I hope that you are able to join us in September as well. And for any of you that have organizations or you have a bulletin board that you know of somewhere that you'd like to post a flyer for us of that event, I have extras up here. Please come see me after the event, and we'd love to have the whole community come out and join us. So as many people as possible. All right, so I am now going to introduce our first presenter for this evening. So Lisa Clavier founded, along with her family, and serves as president of Kirsten's Ride, a nonprofit for suicide awareness, education, and prevention in northern Lower Michigan. Lisa serves as chair of the Charlevoix-Emmett County Suicide Prevention Coalition and facilitator of Charlevoix County Survivors of a Suicide Loss, providing support to those who have lost a loved one to suicide. Clavier also provides direct health outreach services to families. Lisa is dedicated to her faith, family, and community, and she treasures that time with her family. So thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you for joining us here tonight on this beautiful August night, right? We know summer's growing a little shorter. But what an incredible opportunity for us to come together as a community and talk about some really important things that we have going on in our communities. The only way that we can move the needle in a way to improve the safety of our communities is to start having the conversations about suicide and substance use, things that we are dealing with as families and community members and individuals in this area. So thank you for joining us tonight to have this conversation. As Melissa shared, my name is Lisa with Kirsten's Ride. We really are solely focused on education. We do outreach work, spend a lot of time on the phone and meeting folks in person, and spending time helping them learn to walk a journey that none of us want to have to walk. But our dedication as a nonprofit is to make sure that there are not barriers for folks to be able to have the opportunity to take evidence-based trainings, which we know provide support and help to communities to prevent suicide. So a little bit about Kirsten's Ride there. So what we want to do is talk about a serious topic tonight, right? Really 2 of them. And my focus tonight is going to be talking about suicide with us. You want to know why it's important for us to discuss that? And I probably should be standing back here. What is our goal? What can we do and how do we make that happen? So those are really the points that I'm going to cover as quickly as possible to stay in my time frame. But there's a couple things I want to cover here, a little bit of data before we really just spend some time talking. And as she shared that September is Recovery Month, September is also Suicide Prevention Month. And it's really important that the two actually kind of overlap in that month, because we also know that suicide and substance use too often correlate. And some of that data is covered here. There's a study from the last 5 years that showed that folks who misuse prescription opioids are at a 40 to 60% higher risk of ending their life by suicide. That's a pretty staggering number. And we also know that we don't always understand the link. Is it substance use that contributes to thoughts of suicide? Is it thoughts of suicide that contributes to substance misuse because people are going through things and not enjoying that feeling that they're experiencing and trying to deal with that in maybe an unhealthy way? So we know that there is a big correlation. So the fact that we can talk about these two things together tonight, such an incredible opportunity for us as a community. One little data chart here. As we look at unintentional injury, that is in blue. But as we look at suicide, those are in green. And this really shows age charts from 1 all the way through. Something that is new on this chart that didn't used to be here is this suicide here, and follow that age group up. If that doesn't crush your soul, I don't know what will. If we're looking at 5 to 9-year-olds who now are experiencing not just thoughts of suicide, but suicide behavior that is ending their life. We also know that substance misuse is affecting children at younger and younger ages. So often we start to think about, what do we shelter them from at young ages? But then we also have to think about what are the important conversations that we need to have at a cognitive age appropriate level to make sure we're creating safety for these age groups that we don't often think about having these conversations with. So I promise you, I'm not going to drive data all night. I promise. But what we do know is that unhealthy exposure, especially to suicide, is happening. And it's happening in lots of different ways in our community. Our TV programs, the shows that they're streaming, right? Not depicting suicide in a helpful way for our kids to be able to understand how to get help from that. The movies they're watching, also music that they're listening to, social media. Okay? Social media can be a great way to connect, but it can also be very damaging. So we need to be keeping an eye on that. We also know that other youth are talking about suicide and having experiences. So these are the ways that suicide is coming into their life without anybody really mediating their exposure and talking about what did we see here that's not helpful for you? How do we open up this conversation? So if you ever have these thoughts, we can get you the help that you need. So that's an important thing for us to look at. Our goal when we talk about substance misuse and suicide across the board is to create safety, right? We want to be able to take care of each other. And that's really what this is about. So what can we do? Nights like tonight, such an incredible opportunity. We have to open the lines of communication. If we don't talk about it, nothing will get better. We already know that. We need to be aware of what invitations might look like. And then we need to demonstrate and encourage help-seeking behavior. So even if we're not having a substance misuse issue or we're not having thoughts of suicide, when there is something happening in our life, are we setting a good example by saying, I might need some support with this, and that's okay, right? Having those those opportunities to demonstrate that is really important. And then also to become aware of where the resources are in the community, especially before there's a crisis. We want to know where they're at, how do we contact them, and what services they might be able to offer. The more information we have prior to a crisis, the better prepared we're going to be in that moment to get that person connected with the right resources. And then being willing to listen and discuss feelings and experiences, things that have happened in people's lives. So let's just take a moment and think about what can we do specifically. A big part of this is really getting engaged, like being alert in our community. So often we live in a world where people are like, I've got to mind my own business. I've got so much happening in my own life, but we really need to be like this little fox. The ears are always going, they're always alert to what's happening. Is there danger about that I could be a piece in getting safety for someone for? Right? So we need to be willing to look for warning signs. Right? We want to be able to realize that warning signs for different individuals are going to look very different. There are some standard, like individuals talking about ending their lives, seeking out means. Like that's important for us to know those generalized invitations for help. But we also need to be able to recognize that a youth who quits the basketball team and starts changing the way they dress, that could be an invitation that needs to be addressed. If it's a coworker who all of a sudden can't get to work on time and is missing days, that's going to look very different than the youth. So we really have to be willing to think, what is different for this individual? And what does it mean for this person? Let me find out. Right? So we want to also make ourselves available to talk, which really means we need to be able to make ourselves available to listen, right? Kind of get the conversation started, but then don't be afraid to zip it and just hear what they have to say. Find out what's going on in their life. And if there's something that feels like, I don't know if I can really bring up this conversation, don't let that fear stop you, right? This is really about us trying to be helpful to the people in our lives. Appropriate language. Sometimes we think, well, what does that look like, right? What do you mean by that? Well, the truth is, when we're talking about serious subjects like suicide and even substance misuse, it's important that we use language that is not stigmatizing and that will not stop the conversation. So some of the things to stay away from, we actually don't use the word commit anymore when talking about suicide. Commit is very often related to a sin or a crime. And so we want to stay away from that. That could be hurtful. And then we never want to use the word successful or unsuccessful when talking about suicide behavior. And honestly, we hear this one a lot. It's attention seeking for that person. If someone is using suicide to get attention, please tell me what they need. They need some attention from us so that that does not amp up in any way, shape, or form. And then individuals aren't thinking of thoughts of suicide as being stupid or crazy. Those are not helpful ways to talk about it. So we really need to think about respecting the individual in whatever life situation that they're going through, because suicide is something that's really important, and we need to make sure that we're covering that in a way that feels okay to them. And I have to be mindful on here, because sometimes we think about using appropriate language when we're talking with the individual. I would encourage you to be mindful no matter where your conversation is taking place, because you never know who might be experiencing something around you, and they're picking up on how you're talking about substance misuse or about thoughts of suicide. Okay? And that may deter them from seeking help in the future, or if you talk about it in a helpful way, that may be what actually connects them to you for help in the future. Okay? And don't let fear stop you from being a helper. Often we think, what if it is about suicide? Like, I don't know what to do. Okay? Well, we're going to talk about what some resources might be that we can look at, but don't let fear stop you. This is really about helping individuals. It's about saving lives. Right? We want to do the best we can in that moment. And they are already being exposed to suicide in unhealthy ways. So this is an opportunity for us to create a helpful connection for them. It is okay to ask about thoughts of suicide if you have any concern. A lot of times we say, oh, I don't know if I say that word, is that going to make them think about suicide? There have been studies that show that is not the case. Most people are aware of suicide, and you're not automatically just going to switch someone's thought process by bringing up a word. What you can do, though, is create the opportunity for them to get help to a resource if it is about that. But you do want to ask directly so that you're not skirting around the word, you're not tabooing the subject or stigmatizing it, and you want to use whatever language is age appropriate, right? What are they going to understand? Okay. And then we want to be able to connect that individual to the resources that are available to you. There are a lot of resources actually within our communities. Often we hear there's not enough resources up here, and I would say you can never have too many, but I would share with you that we actually have a lot more than people are aware of. But then there are also national resources for us as well. Take a little time to hear what's going on, though. Give that person the pause to just make sure that you don't look like a panic after we find out that it might be about thoughts of suicide. It doesn't mean we shove them at someone else and say, okay, you've got to do this. take a moment and just hear what they have to say. That actually can be very healing in the process itself. But then we also want to make sure that we make that connection as soon as possible and with that person present. Make the phone call with them. Help them make that connection. A lot of times we might be inclined to just give them a number or say, this is where you can go. They may not have the strength to do that for themselves. So if you can make the phone call, put it on speakerphone, start the conversation, that's really helpful for them. They've already done a lot of hard work just by sharing with you that thoughts of suicide are present. And then do whatever you can for safe storage from any lethal means that could be used for suicide. And then I also want us to think about using collaborative care. So we do have lots of resources and organizations in our area that are willing to help. But I want you to also think about, if you said that you would do anything to be a part of safety for that person, you want to make sure that you understand what your role is and that other people understand that you might have a role to play in this as well. So everybody is really in the knowledge of knowing who can do what. So that way you're not skipping out on any responsibilities that maybe this person who needs your support thinks you're going to be able to provide. And then we want you to take the opportunity to think about taking trainings so you can learn more than just this little bit that we're going to wade into tonight. Because the deeper understanding we have about what folks might be going through, the better prepared we're going to be able to help individuals when that moment to be helpful arises. How many of you have had the opportunity to take a CPR or a first aid training at some point in your life? Just about everybody in this room. How many of you have had the opportunity or taken the opportunity to take a suicide specific training? More than the average, so I'm going to celebrate that. But what I will say to you is you're actually more likely to encounter someone who's having thoughts of suicide than you are to encounter someone who needs you to use CPR or first aid. I would encourage you to take that little nugget of knowledge and use that as a call for yourself to say, I will attend a training by the end of this year. You could be helping someone very near and dear to you in the future and not knowing it by making that commitment tonight. And we want you to choose evidence-based trainings. I want you to think about, if you are a part of an organization, a school system, a justice system, a workplace, is anyone there trained to be able to do a suicide-specific intervention? If not, what a great opportunity to start that conversation to say someone at this workplace needs to be prepared to help. So we as individuals can connect someone who might be struggling to that interventionist. Really great opportunity for us to think about conversations that need to happen after we leave here tonight. It's really about making a commitment to continue learning together so that we can do better together for our communities. It takes a village. We may live in the day and age where people want to say, mind your own business. That is not how communities and people strive. We strive when we are connected together and willing to support one another. So thinking about keeping the right people informed. Now, who needs to know what information? It's not about telling everybody, but if you're struggling, just letting a few people know so that if you reach out to them in the middle of the night, they're more likely to pick up that phone. Right? Just thinking about who needs to know. Listen to concerns carefully. If there's someone who says, I don't know what that's going to look like if I connect to Nami, you know what? Let's make that phone call together. Let's talk it through, right? So if they have a concern, you might be able to kind of help them get past whatever that hurdle to getting them to the next step might be. Explore the options and find the right fit. We are all unique individuals. We have unique needs. So let's figure out what the best option is for us as individuals. Advocate for yourself or for loved ones. A lot of times if there's a mental health crisis happening, that person is so physically, emotionally, and mentally drained, it's very hard for them to do that advocacy piece. So if you have the ability to do that for them or with them, please step up to the plate. Safe storage from any means that could happen when we're talking about substance use or suicide. That's always really important. We live in Northern Michigan, so we know that safe storage could be covered better, and we need to advocate for that. If you are a caregiver for someone, think about who is your support person. If we as caregivers don't care well for ourselves, we will not care well for others. So just think about giving yourself a gift of some sort of support as well, whether that's formal or informal. EAPs. So if you're at a workplace, find out if you have an employee assistance program. Sometimes they will cover 5 counseling sessions and they might be able to say, this is who you could connect to. And a lot of times they don't want to know all of the business. They just need to know enough to give you the services that you deserve, that they can give you within that program. And then if anyone is a veteran, think about getting them connected to the VA services long before there is a medical or mental health crisis. The more they're connected before a crisis, the more likely they are to use those services during a crisis. Okay. And then thinking about working together in our community. We have several community agencies that do marvelous things. And no one person and no one agency should be responsible for suicide prevention. So if we're thinking about how do we network together to create the safest community, we need to be doing that. Northern Lakes Community Mental Health here, I'm hoping you will learn more about this, now has a welcoming center. That is so huge. You do not have to drive someone directly to the ER. You can take them to this welcoming place where there's comfy chairs and people prepared to talk about mental health needs. And our hospitals are fabulous, but they are much better equipped to be able to meet physical needs than they are to meet the mental needs. I'm not saying don't go there in a moment of emergency, please do, but know that this welcoming center will be a gift to this community that we can't even measure. Primary care providers. If we have thoughts of suicide happening, let's make sure that our primary care providers know sometimes we have physical things happening that can contribute to our mental health. So if we can keep our doctor in the know, that's really important. And then parents, families, and close friends, think about the capacity to bring them in for safety in providing them with enough information so that they know the importance of their role. Some national services. There's a crisis text line. Kids love this. 741-741. It doesn't have to be about suicide. It can be about anything that they feel is a crisis. And there are trained professionals who will text back with them and really can de-escalate. It's something like 98% of the situations. It's a really high amount. This was the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline for many years, 1-800-273-TALK. You can still dial that number. It still works. It will continue to work for the foreseeable future for quite a long time period. But now that number has been shortened to 988 as well. So if you have stuff that still has the longer number, that's okay. That number still works, but know that also you will be seeing 988 as well. And what an easier number to remember in a crisis, 988 is going to be a lot easier for our brains to wrap around. And you can actually text that number now as well. And they're toting themselves not just as a suicide prevention lifeline, but as a crisis lifeline. Mantherapy.org is probably new to a lot of you. It is not a therapist. It has a fictional, I think he's a psychiatrist on there, but it's really meant to help our men who maybe are less likely to seek out mental health care for themselves and to help them break through some of that barrier. So it uses a little humor. It's a little crass, so it's not for everyone. I would encourage you to at least look at it, because then you would have an idea of, could a man in my life benefit from learning a little bit about this? It's meant to kind of just take that hammer to that glass window that stops them from even peeking to see who the mental health care providers are. Again, not meant to replace therapy whatsoever. And it actually gives them a red phone where they can, if it's a crisis, they can call that like they're the president. Like, it really makes them feel important. And then there are a ton of really great mental health apps out there. Explore some of those. If you want to talk about any of those afterwards, I'm happy to talk about what some of the options are, but there really are a ton out there. But honestly, every single one of us deserves a team of support. And that's really what we're talking about here as we look at resources. Evidence-based training specifically that Kirsten's ride covers. We do youth suicide prevention education in school systems for middle and high school students. We do half-day suicide alertness programs, which actually Melissa and I are going to do some connection on and hopefully offer one right here in the library. And then we travel around Northern Michigan also doing 2-day intervention trainings. And there's a few people in this room who have taken those. So I think that they would testify that they're pretty high quality programs. And then think about whether or not your workplace has a policy to help people who might be having thoughts of suicide. If you don't know, I would encourage you to ask. it might really start some conversations and some policy change that could become really helpful for our other community members. We have a Safe Talk scheduled in Charlevoix in September. And then we have two-day assist programs coming up. East Jordan, the end of this month, Petoskey, the end of September. Our website will continue to update trainings as they become available. We literally travel all over Northern Michigan. We have no home office. I make the joke that my car is the office. Our goal is really to eliminate the barriers. And part of that means you might not be able to travel to Petoskey. So we're hoping to be back here in Traverse City for a 2-day training by the end of the year. So keep a lookout for a training near you or one that works for you, and please consider taking that. Honestly, we just want to encourage you to keep talking to one another. That's really what's going to make the difference here. And we want to keep talking about suicide till there's nothing left to talk about it. Zero suicide is our nation's initiative to eliminate suicide. It's something that you can look up if you'd like to learn a little more about. And thank you for the opportunity to come here to learn a little more tonight about what's happening in our community, resources that are available, because education truly does make all the difference. So I don't know, do I have 2 seconds for questions or did I take too long?
No, let's go ahead.
Okay. Are there any questions before I turn this over? Nope. Good. Perfect. Not good, but I was afraid I took too long.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Let me just. Thank you for bearing with there. All right, our next presenter is Rick Coates. He is the Executive Director of the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, of Grand Traverse. He joined NAMI last July after sharing his 50-year struggle with mental illness. But you may know him from one of the many other hats he's worn in the community, on the morning show on WKLT, Benzie County Chamber of Commerce, the Leelanau Peninsula Vintners Association, and most notably, he co-wrote and co-produced the television commercial Going to the Fair. So now you know who all to thank for that. Welcome, Rick. Thank you so much.
I should probably take that out of my bio. Thank you for saying, yeah, it's one of several reasons why people in this community don't like me, is that song. 35 years ago next year is when that song came out. But anyways, I'm here to talk about NAMI, but before I do that, I'm going to share my story and start by saying this. It is really a great time to be mentally ill. And that may sound a little bit crazy, but it wasn't always that way. And what I mean by that is that, as you heard in my bio from Melissa, that I've had a 50-year struggle with mental illness, and that's what connected me to NAMI. And for almost 50 of those years, it was pure hell. And because of the stigma, and it made, I lost friendships, I lost family members, and had some work issues because I was afraid to talk about the challenges that I was going through. And so listening to Lisa tonight talk about suicide, that's what changed everything for me. In October of 2021, I lost a person that I knew in this community quite well, wasn't a friend, but I knew him, who died by suicide. From October to July of 2021, that number grew to 7. And on a Friday night, when a friend of mine for 40 years, his wife called me, and there were 5 of us that spent a tremendous amount of time together. When the wife called and read me the letter that he left, I couldn't believe it, because I knew him for 40 years and had no idea that he had been struggling. There was no evidence, and I knew him really well. He never mentioned I was his best friend, and he never mentioned anything to me. And he left a young wife, a second wife, and 3 young children behind. And I sat down and cried. And then I realized that my whole life, I've done everything possible to hide my mental illness. and nobody knew anything. And I sat down like everybody does when you want to tell people things. And I went to Facebook and told my story. And I think it got shared. I think it's up to 3,700 shares now. And so I told my whole story, and so many people in town were surprised because I spent so much of my life and so much time and energy hiding the mental illnesses that I have been challenged with going back to when I was 8 years old. The day that I did that, my whole life changed for the better. And I just got done recording the video, the CHIRE, which is the 10 county regional group of all sorts of mental health organizations working together. We are producing a series of videos on mental illness that'll be shown in the schools and all of that. And that'll be introduced at the summit in September. So I spoke today and recorded my part of the video. But since that moment, and that's why I'm so excited to be affiliated with NAMI, since that moment last July, when I told my story, my life has changed for the better. And I wish that, and that's the message that I'm trying to convey with NAMI. I wish, and everybody that I run into, and I've had friends now come out, is that if I would have maybe done this 30 years ago, my life might look a little bit different. So I've been challenged with panic attacks and anxiety, and essentially I'm imprisoned by it. And what I mean by that, it's been 33 years since I've been past Grand Rapids, Lansing, up to Bay City, and over the Mackinac Bridge. Haven't been in an airplane for 33 years. But that changed 3 weeks ago. I went on my first airplane ride, except for I did. Yeah, well, I don't know about flying anymore because I went on the plane, but I didn't land in the plane. I jumped out of the plane at 10,000 feet. So I went from not flying for 33 years to jumping out of the plane. So I'm not sure if I can land. So if I fly commercial, I'm going to take a parachute for my carry-on, try to go that route. So ending the stigma is extremely important to NAMI. And I'm going to get my notes here, start talking a little bit about NAMI. So that's my story and what I'm advocating, and that is to end the stigma and to really encourage people to come forward and tell their story and share their story. Every day I run into people thanking me for sharing my story and people encouraging me and supporting me. I told very few people that I was going to jump out of an airplane because if I didn't do it, then nobody would know. But there was probably about 30 people that did, and they came to Charlevoix, all of them, to support me. They were out in boats on Lake Michigan watching me jump out of an airplane. So it was pretty cool to have that kind of support. And so if there's anybody here tonight that's struggling, I think you'll find that hiding it isn't helping, it's hurting. So let's talk a little bit about NAMI here. NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And we have an affiliate here. We're NAMI Grand Traverse, but we're really servicing all of Northern Michigan. And if you came in to our booth and you had an opportunity to meet Paula, she's our board secretary and probably will become our board president soon. And so encourage you to get an opportunity to talk with her tonight. She's been involved with NAMI and it's changed her life just like it's changed my life. NAMI is based on lived experience. So everybody that is involved with NAMI, that's involved in any of the programming, that has some sort of lived experience. You might be recovering or battling a mental illness like myself, or you may be like Paula, who shares her story all the time, has an adult child with mental illness. And so we have a lot of, and I'm going to talk in just a few minutes about those groups that we have. But NAMI was formed back in it's 45 years ago this year, 1977 in Madison, Wisconsin. And let me pull my notes up that just disappeared on me. So sorry about that. And in 1947, when two moms got together because they were frustrated with the fact that both of them had children with schizophrenia, and they were frustrated with the fact that they were being blamed for it. The mothers were being blamed for it. And sometimes they felt that they were at fault. So they started this as a grassroots organization to be able to offer support. And so since that happened 45 years ago, it's grown into a national organization. Every state has a state organization, and then there are affiliates in each state, and then there's the national organization. And so from there, obviously NAMI has grown and helped hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people over the past 45 years. Here locally, NAMI started several years ago, and then it's all volunteers. And so it struggled a little bit, but then 4 years ago, a handful of wonderful women in this community got together and restarted NAMI and got an affiliate together. And it's been growing and thriving ever since. And so we're very fortunate that I think for the last 4 years, every Monday night, we have a family support group that is led by lived experience facilitators who go through extensive training. And so every Monday night for an hour and a half, it's now back in person. It's hybrid, in person and also on Zoom. And every week, it seems like we get new people that end up joining the group. And at some point, we're going to have to expand and create additional groups. So we have that group for those. And I know I heard some people talking earlier tonight about the importance of, peer-to-peer and that type of. So when you're in a room and you're talking to other people who have maybe adult children, maybe minor children, maybe it's a spouse, maybe it's a good friend, a loved one, and you're caring for them, it's an empowering experience to be in a support group with others that can relate and share their experiences. Then we also have Connection, which is peer-to-peer essentially, and that is also on Monday night, and that's for people like myself who are challenged with mental illness, recovering from mental illness or whatever. And so we have those two groups, and they've been going on for the last 4 years, and we're certainly looking to get additional people, because it's all volunteers in the community that would be willing to help us launch some more of these support groups. We're getting ready to, and also to our offices, I should let you know, we're not at our offices very often, but everybody's working from home. But the addiction treatment services, they've been so wonderful to us and provide us with a nice space. And we have a conference room there, and that's just around the corner here off of Garfield. And so, but call first, because like I said, I'm not in the office. I'm not in the office a lot, but and the other thing too, before I talk about some of the other programs, is we carry a cell phone. I carry a cell phone with me 24/7. It's not a crisis line, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. But mental illness doesn't work 9 to 5. So we and I'm going to give a couple of examples of some things that we've been able to do after hours to help people. But we're getting ready to introduce some new programs into our community, which we're really excited about. And one is called Ending the Silence, and that's going to launch this fall in our schools, and it's going to be a pilot program. And so Ending the Silence is a 3-part program. And how it works is, one part of the program is a 90-minute presentation to staff and faculty and administration. It's important in a school system that those that are working closely with the students understand what mental illness looks like. So that's one part of the program. The second part of the program is a program that's very close to what would be presented to the students, and that's a 50-minute program to the parents, which can be done on Zoom to kind of get more parents to be able to attend so they understand what will happen. And then from there, there's a 50-minute program that's done in the classroom. So it's classroom by classroom. It works best in small groups, doing Ending the Silence. And it's an overview of mental illness. So it goes beyond just suicide prevention. It touches on everything. That's the only program in NAMI where you don't have to have lived experience to be the primary facilitator of that presentation. There's a second presenter in that presentation that gives a 10-minute presentation. That is somebody in the age range of 18 to 30. So a little bit more from an age perspective, relatable to the students, who gives and talks about their story and shares their story. And then there's an opportunity for Q&A. In some states, Ending the Silence is mandated. South Carolina now, at the end of next year, they'll have it in every single school, because when we talk about evidence-based, this is the CDC, the National Institute on Mental Illness, they did a big study, and and found out how successful it is. So Minnesota has got it in all of their schools, Iowa and Pennsylvania, and I know more schools. So we're really excited about having the opportunity to be able to introduce, and we're doing it as a pilot program. And then we hope to be able to have it in as many schools as possible. So we're going to pilot it at TCAPS and Benzie and Sutton's Bay and a couple of other schools this fall. And then hopefully next winter we'll be launching it full-fledged. Another program that we're getting ready to introduce in the community, and I'm going through the training and one other volunteer is going through the training, is called Homefront. And it's a brand new program that NAMI has just launched, and that's for veterans. And so we're excited about that. And it's a specific program. There's a great website that's been created for that. And so we'll be in a position to be able to teach those classes to veterans and veterans' families. And so we're excited about that. And then I heard Lisa reference about policies and things in your workplace. We've been approached by a couple of chambers and a couple of larger businesses and other NAMIs across the country. NAMI National has not created a business yet for having programming. They're working on that, but we're looking to create that locally, where we will go into businesses and help them with creating mental health and mental wellness programs in their business. And other NAMI affiliates have done that. And so we've been able to take a look at that model. And finally, and then I'll take some questions. One of the things that we have that sets us apart from a lot of NAMIs is we have a Nami Navigator. And one of the things that was extremely important to our board of directors was to be able to help people that are in need to be able to navigate the system. And as Lisa pointed out, no one organization, no one agency can be everything. It's going to take lots and lots. And so there's, especially any agency that has to be partnered with the federal and the state government, they have so many restrictions that there's are challenges. But what is happening is that if you have a 23-year-old son or daughter that's going through a mental crisis, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to be able to get answers and know where to go for help. And so our NAMI Navigator, her name is Jessie, she's just been doing an absolutely fantastic job. And so what happens is people will call, and even we're getting hospitals and other organizations referring to people, because we don't have the restrictions at NAMI that others have. So what I'll give you a couple examples. So one night at 9:40, a mom from up north, further north, called, and she was crying, and her 23-year-old son was going to be released from a hospital at midnight because his time, it's like getting released from jail at midnight. You're getting released at midnight because your time is up, and nowhere for him to go. She couldn't have him come back to the house because he's violent, and she didn't want him to be out in the streets. And so we were able to jump in action with our NAMI Navigator, and before midnight, get the hospital to let that 23-year-old stay for 2 more days. And then in those next 2 days, Jessie was able to find a long-term, facility for him to go to. So that's just one example of a call that comes out of the blue. And we pretty much get a call or two every day from people that are panicked because it's just frustrated. They're frustrated because it's trying to navigate the system, and it can be anything from legal issues to trying to get treatment. And I'll give you an example. This was just a mother called and said, my 10-year-old son is been having hallucinations, has been hearing voices, is seeing people in his bedroom that he says those people are threatening, are going to kill him and the family and all of that. 1 year. It's going to be 1 year before he was going to be able to see a psychiatrist. 1 year. So we got him a psychiatrist in 1 week. That's what our NAMI Navigator is doing. That's what we're doing at NAMI. We're getting ready to go out, obviously, on a larger campaign. When NAMI started here, the focus was getting a couple of the support groups going, doing a few other things. And then the board a year ago decided we need to take this to the next level. And that's what we're doing now here at NAMI. So yeah, I think I've taken up enough time looking at the clock. That went pretty quick. So that's it. You can grab some information when you leave, our brochure. We're always looking for volunteers, so feel free to sign up. And with that, are there any questions? Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rick. Now I'd like to introduce our speakers from Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. Bridget Klassen is a clinical therapist in crisis services. Matt Zarelli is with their juvenile justice diversion program, and Pam Blue is the operations manager of crisis service and justice diversion. So thank you, folks.
Okay. Thank you. Look at all that Narcan. It's a beautiful sight. I hope it's all gone by the time we leave. Please take some. My name is Bridget. I'm a crisis services worker with Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. And when I see families that come together like this, I revert back to doing family group and going with that structure. So in that vein, I will tell you one thing that I'm grateful for. And I want to do a go around, but I can't. But I'm grateful to be here with you. I'm grateful to hear the work that you've all been doing that is outside of my awareness. Because for too long, I've been going from Hall Street to the hospital, Hall Street to the hospital. I've been screening people for inpatient hospital, outpatient therapy, in and out, and I'm very sorry for that. So I want to let you know that right now, for the sake of transparency, we're going to do better. So one thing that's going well, that's what we always ask in groups, is exactly that. We're now able to expand the continuum of care and the options available for folks who are in crisis by having more to offer than strictly inpatient hospital. Okay, so that's going very well. And Pam will talk to you more about that. She's the operations manager for those programs. The other thing that's going along with that is that we're able to get out of Hall Street and get out of our offices, and we're more encouraged than ever before to meet you wherever you are in that community if you're in crisis. So we can come to your home, we can meet you in a welcoming center, we can meet you wherever you want, so you don't have to come to us. Makes more sense, we should come to you. So we do that with children in our FAST program, Family Assessment Safety Team. And so we work in pairs and go to the home, go to the school. We've been doing a lot of work at Traverse City area, and that's for Grand Traverse, Leelanau, Wexford, Misaki, Roscommon. Yeah, so we're not in Benzie, and we're not, that's a different, and we're not in Kalkaska, we're not in Elk Rapids. So that's unfortunate that they don't have that service available. So I'm grateful to be here. One thing that's going well, one thing that could be better. And as I think my hope, I guess, as I look at the future, is that we're able to take back control of our own treatment. I think that once we get in the communities more and we have other options for care, we'll be less reliant on experts. I don't think they've served us as well as they could. So I hope that we can take that back and become more of a collaborative partners and explain more about the options for treatment that are available, so that you don't just have hospital or home, right? Call you in the morning, follow up with you. Hospital, go away, leave your families, go somewhere to another community. And then if you get well, that's great. And if you don't, well, it's 5 to 7 days, and we'll talk to you again when we review it. So I feel better about the opportunity to take that back. I'd like to invite, we have a lot of very creative people in our communities, and I'd like to invite them to be a part of the problem-solving discussion. And by that, I mean artists, poets, musicians, writers. Those are all the people who are going to be able to adapt. They as a group tend to adapt quicker than the rest of us because they're able to generate more solutions. So I'm hoping that we can carry our requests for help to a wider audience and get more input from them. So I'm grateful to be here. I think things are really starting to look good. I think that they could still be better. So thank you. Pam, let's bring it up.
And the system that needs to be navigated. So I hope that.
So
changes.
I'm gonna move this up a little bit because she's a little bit shorter than I am, so.
Younger, too. Just saying.
So my name's Pam Blue. I'm with Northern Lakes Community Mental Health. I've been there for a couple of years now. I originally came from a counseling background and then went over to the legal system for about 17 years and was a probation officer, and then moved to Northern Lakes. And I am so happy that I made that switch, and wish I would have made it a lot sooner than I did. Because it's just much more fulfilling and gratifying. But anyway, enough about me. So I'm here to talk about our new Crisis Welcoming Center. We opened that on June 20th, I believe was the date. We opened it for limited period. We were waiting and waiting and waiting until we got enough staff, and finally I said, let's open it for at least, let's look at what hours of the day generate the most crisis contacts, and what hours we're doing it already, and what hours we could add on to. So we decided that we were going to open it from noon to midnight, because really after midnight, not to say that it dissipates totally, but the number of crisis calls does go down after midnight. So we opened it from 12 to midnight, 7 days a week. Holidays were open and everything else. We've got, it's a place where somebody can come if they're not sure, if they're not sure that they need hospitalization, or if they just need a place to rest their head and think about things for a minute and get away. So it's not always somebody that needs to be hospitalized that come. And we've had a steady stream of people coming in. So we're really grateful that we're providing this. We're on track to provide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our target is by October 1st. So we're hoping that we'll have employees in place. There's a staff shortage out there. I've been trying to recruit if anybody wants a job, Maddie. Anyway, so we're going to hopefully be open. People can talk to we have peers there. We have a clinician there. So whoever they're comfortable talking with, they can talk to either one. We have hospitalized people right from the center, so that we've taken Munson right out of the equation. Now that doesn't always happen. It can happen more often though for juveniles than for adults, because juveniles don't have to be medically cleared, because they don't usually have a lot of chronic illnesses and stuff. So we have done that. We have hospitalized people, and that saves a lot of time, because people may have to sit for hours and even days sometimes in the hospital, and we need to get that system to be better, and that's what we're striving to do. This is part one of a continuum. We hope that we just got money to and we put out a bid for a crisis residential building or facility, and so we're hoping that this will lead to something that will be able to house some people and have more crisis services. The one other thing that I wanted to talk about is everybody in the crisis residential or crisis welcome center is trained on Narcan, so we can administer that. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about was Stacy Kaminsky and myself were recently trained by AMSR, which stands for Assessing and Managing Suicide Risk. And that's from the Zero Coalition that I'm sure Lisa, Zero Suicide, which Lisa knows. So we have been chosen as one of 22 people in the state to complete a training to be able to go out and train people at workplaces, at first responders or whoever, to be able to recognize how to assess and manage the risk of suicide when they're going to need to call somebody, when they, when they can handle it themselves and all that kind of stuff. So if anybody's in need of training for any of those purposes, give us a call. We can come and train your staff. So we'd be happy to do it. Any questions? Yes.
Is there a community, like one-stop shop list of resources? Like a website that lists all the resources in our community, or a pamphlet, something that pulls everything together? There's a lot of moving parts. It's hard to know what you don't know.
That's, yeah, I have not seen one.
No, it doesn't exist, but it's being worked on by several different organizations.
There you go.
So it should be done soon.
That would be nice. That would be very nice. Yes.
Did I hear you say where the welcoming center is?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's on, yeah, that might be a little bit helpful. So it's on Hall Street, which is right in between North Peak and the Beta Station. And you go around to the parking lot entrance, which kind of looks like the back entrance, but it's really the front entrance. But you come back there and it's right as you come in, it's right to the left. You go in both the double doors and it's right to the left. So you can get something to eat or drink, or, and just have comfortable chairs to sit in and relax if you need to. We've had people come in and just take a nap, because that's what they needed. So. Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pam and Bridget. So thank you all this evening for coming, for talking, for presenting, for listening, for learning. Really happy that you all have been here, at any point throughout the series. We're so grateful that you all have been here. So just a note that we are going to have a different community conversation with Munson Healthcare Hospice at the end of September on the 29th in the same room. And we're going to be talking about how to support people who are grieving. And so I'm bringing it up, just kind of, it ties into a lot of what we're talking about tonight as well. So hopefully maybe we'll see some of you there as well. So thank you again for coming this evening. And please be sure to check out the recording of this and share it with others from our YouTube channel. Thank you so much. Nancy, sorry. Nancy wanted to say a few words. I'm so sorry. How could I possibly forget Nancy?
I don't want to keep you all any longer, but first and foremost, I want to thank Melissa McKenna and the Traverse City Area Library for hosting this every single month for us for the past 5 months. All the hard work that she puts into organizing this with me and just having everything ready and prepared. So could we have a round of applause for Melissa? The last thing that I want to promote is our Overdose Awareness Day ceremony. So myself, Ann Grizel, and Diane Goodyear put this on. It's at the Botanical Gardens. It's something that's very near and dear to us because we each have lost a loved one to substance use disorder. So, but with that being said, this day that we honor our loved ones, we also recognize the hope of recovery, and that's what we focus on. That's what our kids wanted more than anything, was recovery. So we are welcoming everyone to come. It will be at the Botanical Gardens, August 31st at 6:30 in the Walled Garden. We have some recovery speakers. We have some recovery musicians. We're going to do a remembrance walk on the labyrinth. There's flyers on the first table as you enter the room to take home. And I'll be sending out a lot of digital to all the organizations. So please help promote it. It's just a really special day for us, and we hope for those that are in recovery and those striving. So thank you.